There we go. Perfect. Welcome, everyone, to the keynote address for the BanklessDeSci Unconference 2023. I am excited today to introduce Shady El Damaty, co-founder of OpSci and Holland. And I won't speak more about Shady's work. His work speaks for itself. True legend in the space, DeSci OG, one of the original co-organizers of Desci Denver, which has grown and been a huge part of the DeSci movement and helping to organize other events and collaborating with so many other projects. So it's a real pleasure to have Shady here today to give the keynote address. And we are running a little bit behind, so I'm going to keep my introduction very short. And please take it away, Shady. I look forward to hearing what you have to say, and thank you again for giving us your time. And I hope everyone's been enjoying the Unconference. We'll be wrapping up after this. The breakout sessions have been finishing up. The community stage is done. The others are wrapping up just now. But yeah, this is the final session today, and we'll have some closing remarks from Michael at the very end. So thank you again, Shady, and please do take it away.
Thank you, Elijah. Really appreciate the intro there. Really honored to be here at the first BanklessDeSci Unconference. I think Bankless has been a canary in not the coal mine, but a canary in just the wider world, telling us, I guess, in the canary of the fiat coal mine, really. So it's great to see this community coming together and really tapping into narratives beyond just financial speculation, beyond just number go up memes, and really thinking about how distributed web technology can uplift and really usher in a new wave of prosperity, right, for society, not just because once we liberate the money, right, once we go bankless, we can put our energies as a society to other places. And I think it's really important to center the conversation today around our motives and intents around DeSci as a collective, and especially regarding kind of more recently, a lot of success has been experienced by DeSci projects with token prices going up and a lot of FOMO and word going out into the mainstream. And it's usually, when the excitement and the hard work paying off after after years and years of building in the space, folks like Patrick Joyce and Research Hub, research, their project is just taking off right now. Folks like Vita DAO, like Genomes DAO and Data Lake, and it's incredible to see dividends paying off finally. But it's very, very important to keep our eye on the prize and remain in control of the narrative of why we were here in the first place. So, with that said, I think one of the most compelling ideas or beautiful conceptions of where DeSci can take us is on this infinite quest of knowledge seeking, where when we boil down into it, when we're in a post-scarcity type society, when we think about solving all of the core human problems first, what's left after that is a boundless universe, and being able to build tools that empower and push discovery are going to be the most is going to be the most rewarding journey that any of us could go on. So when we think about design, what we're doing, we have to ask ourselves, what are we playing for? And a mantra that I've consolidated on, and I continue to repeat to myself and to anybody else who will listen, is that we are imagining a future of science where open source is considered the norm, the default, the social norm, where pluralistic ideas can emerge, right? So there's no sense of dogmatic persistence, but we have the ability to spin up in the true nature of open source and distributed decentralized permissionless systems, spin up and fork off of each other and create many competing visions or explanations for a natural phenomenon, and allowing those that have the greatest explanatory power, those that can withstand falsification, that put themselves out there, to be proven wrong and be able to withstand the most rigorous oversight is how we move forward as a species. And none of this means anything if it doesn't drive impact, right, in our lives, if it doesn't allow us to accomplish our goals to improve the lives of other people as well. So decentralized web technology has a huge part in this. But as we're playing this infinite DeSci game, how do we know when we've succeeded? And there's a couple different ways to measure success. Some of us might immediately think, all right, well, let's take a financial perspective, right? Let's see how many dollars can be produced, or let's see, annual ARR. Let's see what that looks like for DeSci, and we'll know if it's succeeded or not, if it matches that of a Fortune 500 or a top 10 FANG company. So if we look at the state of things today, about a minuscule amount of DeSci projects have raised Gitcoin grants somewhere in the order of, I think, like 60,000 or something like that. Um, VC funding for DeSci projects has done a little bit better, a couple of orders of magnitude better, um, at around $50 million across projects like Molecule, Research Hub, Vibe Bio, etc. Now, that's still peanuts, an order of magnitude less compared to just the amount of research funding funneled into Harvard, $0.9 billion. And when we think about what really we're going after, right, it's the distributed network of knowledge provenance of content on the internet, where every single cat video, every single TikTok dance video is training data or is experimental data that can be used to assess or improve upon priors and improve upon inference for algorithms that can help us create more realistic models of human behavior, of the natural world, and other phenomena that are worth studying. So just looking at that market cap itself, it's $100 billion out there just of cat videos. And I think DeSci really holds a lot of promise for what happens when we draw that knowledge graph together and every cat video becomes a data point in an animal behavior meta-analysis or meta-study. And being able to drive that culturally, right, as something interesting and cool and rewarding to do, I think is one of our calling cards, one of our calls to action as a space. So, aside from money, you can also look at this in terms of volume produced, right? Like what kind of artifacts are being created. And again, DeSci is very, very nascent, right? Like I think the things that we can really point to and say it's successful are some IP NFTs that have come out, maybe some decentralized genomic sequencing kits that are stored in decentralized web infrastructure. And there really isn't that much research coming out of the DeSci space. And I think, I challenge everyone to think about how we can really put our science where our mouths and tokens are and be competing with the best research institutions around the world. And I think organizations like LabDAO are incredibly well positioned to do so. And there's great models for this, right? This isn't something where there aren't any examples. I think, taking the Santa Fe Institute as a hallmark web one even example of what's possible. And Active Inference Institute, which very much echoes a lot of those design philosophies and the coordination and organization of distributed knowledge accumulation and sense making, being able to draw people all over the world together into distributed teams to solve problems, publish papers, and contribute to the knowledge record. I think DeSci Labs is going to be at the heart of this with their DeSci nodes architecture, and eventually scaling to the point where every daily video post or article becomes an append operation to the scientific record. So, when we look into numbers, things can be pretty overwhelming. And I think if we ground ourselves and think about what are the things that we really want to just see, right? We want to see more access and engagement in scientific research. That's a common theme I keep coming back to in this talk. We want to see perhaps a greater complexity of an average, say you and I open up a communication channel with each other, and as we're passing binary streams between each other, these binary streams should, on average, over time, have greater complexity and information density over time, meaning that there should be references and provenance to data that we're interacting with, whether it's about the weather, um, uh, whether it's about social information, so on and so forth. And the better that we can communicate with each other with provenance and being able to resolve attestations and claims, to some data that can allow us to make an inference on the possibility or the probability of that claim being true or resulting in a subsequent claim, will make us hyper will unlock a hyper capacity for coordination in human society at the digital level, this sort of hyper forum. And I think it's a very, very important and noble pursuit to go after, being able to improve the information for across humans. I am getting a phone call. I think other positive metrics such as um, positive outcomes such as like, are we reducing carbon emissions? Are we improving lifespans? Are we making medicine more accessible? Or something that DeSci Labs might say is a great outcome metric, which is how big and dense and extensive can we make the knowledge corpus of humanity? So overall, the main theme that we come back to is that diverse combinatorial expressions of success are the very, very essence of decentralized science. It's not me saying what success looks like that defines it in of itself, but it's a collective rising of voices that allows the space to generate an emergent consciousness or an emergent group directed behavior that allows us to navigate the complexity of the environment around us and converge to focal points that allow us to push society better along a myriad of important outcomes and targets to chase after. So we can play the game. We can definitely play the game, the infinite science game. But a big question is, how do we play with a winning attitude? And the number one piece of advice that I tell to myself every single day and that I would communicate to all other builders is to listen to the scientists and understand their problems. And by scientists, I don't mean just academics at universities. I mean anybody who's capable and motivated to form hypotheses and rigorously attempt to falsify them through applied practice of the scientific method. And as you understand their problems, build stuff and ship it frequently, even if it's imperfect, even if it isn't decentralized, even if it doesn't use a single component of Web3 in the stack. And I see builders out there that are doing this, and hats off to you for working out there to solve problems. And more often than not, if you can find yourself becoming molded into the infrastructure or William from Pirates of the Caribbean, his father, right, Bootstrap Bill, as he becomes part of the ship, part of the ship, part of the crew. I think it's that you're winning when the tools that you're putting out into the open source ecosystem are merging into the protocol, that the protocol is gaining traction, there's utility being built, and everything that comes after that will be further improved by that. So marketing only takes you so far. Build, build, build. The backstage is going to take you farther than the limelight ever will. And one note to keep in mind, and it's not definitely like a dogma or anything, but it is important to note that it's really not DeSci if you alone can control it, or you or your team alone can control it and turn it off. So thinking about how we include a wider audience into the conversation, not just the core building team or the core community or the core DeSci movement of the couple dozens or hundreds of people within this conference, say, for example. So we can do so. We can continue to play with and win with a winning, or continue to play with a winning attitude, but also be open about opportunities. Some stuff might come up that you would never have imagined as possible, right? So a couple examples just from my own personal experience. Just this week, actually, met with a funded organization that is a data consortium for indigenous communities. So basically, data that's collected from Native American reserves, from nature reserves, anthropological data from, kind of like dig sites and other types of social behavior data that has roots to indigenous communities in Central America. And one really key aspect of this is being able to allow these indigenous communities that don't have these traditional governance structures, or perhaps don't even participate in the same manner as traditional governance structures, and perhaps retain their own sovereignty, allowing them to still remain empowered in how that data is used and how that, those quote unquote sacred forms are communicated and respected in the scientific community. And believe it or not, Web3 came looking for a Web3 solution because there is nothing out there that meets their requirements for allowing any indigenous member, any person that's part of a community to be able to attest and claim to a piece of data is coming from their heritage or coming from that specific community. And things like Ethereum attestation station or Ethereum attestation service are actually solve a lot of these problems that with IPFS. So if you stay within the niche or the bubble, you'll miss these opportunities and miss these possibly really impactful ways that you can build technology. And this blends into tools for citizen science that I've seen calls for. And I think also keeping in mind that we shouldn't shy away from merging creative work into our DeSci projects. Not all art really is a vanity project. I think art can definitely uplift and explain and make your work more accessible and understandable by those outside of your niche. The last bit of advice I would give about opportunities, things that have just, that I've experienced success with, are make it a habit to make a pull request at least once a year. Make it a New Year's resolution to some open science repository. That's how you get buy-in from the wider scientific community and help and give them an opportunity to both build trust, to build trust with them, with you, and also to experience what possibilities there are for Web3 in their tech stack. So let's not forget what people want. I've done a little bit of this research with scientists and collected data, so perhaps some of you don't have to, but I encourage you to continue to go out there and speak with them, collect your own data, make up your own minds. But researchers and scientists want four things. One, it's low hassle funding for basic science. It needs to be easy. They want to be recognized and compensated for their contribution, and sometimes that compensation is recognition. People in this digital distributed world really are seeking community collaboration and connection. And now that we're moving into kind of like an AI or post AI or big data world or scenario on the internet, some of the biggest limiting factors for researchers is having access to resources to deposit data or to access large data sets that they can write algorithms on. I mean, NIH and NSF have already collected terabytes and terabytes, petabytes of scientific data, and these can be mined for the next 100 years by researchers with very, very little overhead. So if you can come in and provide computational researchers with infrastructure that allows them to take ownership of their products and their outputs, their algorithms, and the insights that they create, you would be unlocking a massive latent pool of value and talent. So just to give a little bit of kind of background, or I guess hopefully some inspiration on how I'm thinking about some of these problems and what you can do with them as you think about your building or potential ways that we can move together as a community. We've taken some of these problems and identified having a distributed registry of who's working in DeSci and what they're doing, and being able to measure impacts in a discrete way over time, with accumulated reputation being imported with or without pseudonymity from the academic world. So I think one of the most important primitives in the space that we should be building on is identity, because that is what scientists and researchers sacrifice their entire lives for, get a PhD, struggle to get on the tenure track, because their academic identity is wholly enshrined in the institutions that they serve. And the big aha moment for DeSci will come when we convert that enshrined identity into a self-sovereign owned identity that's part of a pluralistic set of communities that are pursuing different types of practice across disciplines. And this won't happen until we have better rails for taking folks on this journey, right? So one of the things that we've been focusing very heavily on are smooth Web 2 rails to allow anyone with an existing academic or institutional account a researcher or a research subject, even perhaps, or participant in a research project, can quickly, with an email, with some minimal UX friction, create an account, custody their own data, and produce proofs on top of the data, such as they participated in a research study or belong to a patient rare disease community while still maintaining pseudonymity. So I do invite anyone who's out there listening to do sign up for our closed alpha. If you'd like to give this a preview, we think it'll be a huge game changer for anyone that's working outside of Web3. Although I think this solution also works really well for Web3 developers that need a better way to give their users Web3 accounts and produce privacy-preserving proofs on those accounts. So I would also like to shout out to those that are out there building and who just don't give a complete sentence about about all the BS that's around us, but really shout out to those that have tested out some of this technology already, specifically the BanklessDeSci Community Hub, which allows users to attest to themselves a privacy-preserving proof of uniqueness that they are not a bot, which then is as a primitive that allows you to then engage in a community filtered for real people, which you could add academic credentials to and maintain pseudonymity in development. And there's tons of reasons why that are out of the scope of this talk, why we think that's important. So shout out to Renee for all of her hard work. And I can't wait to see where you go with this. I'm really, really excited. So I think I'm running a little bit late on time, but I will give a quick overview on how these ZK proofs work to provide a little bit of technical component to a very soft talk up until now. So, I think like I said, one of the most important components, primitives that we could be focusing on in DeSci is identity. And the best way to do identity is to provide it that in such a way, provide a solution in such a way that the user is always in control of their identity. Where the data originates from, the data should always be co-located in the hands of the owner, right? So if you complete a medical form, that medical form shouldn't leave your device unless it's for a very good reason. And if it does leave that device, you should first exhaust all privacy preservation options first. For example, if a pharmacy needs to know from your medical form what height and weight you are to prescribe a specific drug, they shouldn't get all of your information. They should just get a proof that you meet the requirements based off of that data. So how does this work? Basically, we have a user device, and that user has some form or credential that they verify. Let's say here, in this case, instead of a medical form, it's an ID. They present this to an issuer. And there's different variations of this too, by the way, that don't require the issuer with NFC type credentials that allow you to attest to yourself without ever including a third party. But in this example, let's roll with it. You present it to the issuer validates it with an identity authority and provides a cryptographic signature that this is valid, and you can always look it up in the method that was employed. This is handed back to the user with a nullifier. A nullifier is a tool in zero knowledge speak that allows the user to basically obfuscate their credential after it's handed back from the issuer, such that the issuer can't track the user anymore. They can't know just by looking out on the internet or looking out at a server or even snooping on all communication channels that the credential that the user used is uniquely belonging to that user. And that's because of a salt and pepper from cryptography speak that makes the encryption not map onto the input data that the issuer received at the first place, so they can't hash it to the same thing. The nullifier is also really useful for making sure that the user can't double spend their identity. So once you have that, you can send it through a relayer node. And a relayer node is also really important for preserving privacy because you don't want the user on their own transacting on chain, for example, or with some server if you're doing off-chain proofs. So the relayer node handles all those operations on behalf of the user and obfuscates their IP address and who they are so that they can't be tracked and tied to some pattern of activity. And then the last bit is once you have this wrapped credential with a nullifier, you can put it into an anonymity set with a bunch of other credentials that makes it very difficult to brute force, even if you had the entire Bitcoin hash power to work on it for the next couple hundred years. Once you have this verification, you can then generate proofs on top of this credential. So basically now from a different account, you can log into a different address or what have you, and prove that you on your device have a signature that lets you prove set membership within that previous anonymity set, that you verified and you have a valid credential in the anonymity set. So you can do this again through a relayer. And the relayer would then allow you to choose a certain type of credential you'd like to prove on top of that verified credential, such as that you are a real person, you are from Nebraska, you are over 18, you are part of the American Cancer Society, et cetera, et cetera. And these can be minted on chain or off chain, can be queried as an endpoint by any API. We actually host one. And you can issue that credential to a private user account that's not tied to the original account that the user verified with to basically add another layer of obfuscation. Once that's done, you can access any service that's gated by it. I'll skip over this because I think we're at the end, but yeah, that's kind of, I think, there's tons of opportunities to build in the space. It's so exciting, I think, to dive headfirst into DeSci. Just listen to what people are asking for, and the solutions are out there, and some of them are half built as well. There's a lot of existing work, so I encourage everybody to to listen, to collaborate, and to spend more time on GitHub making pull requests. That's how we move forward as a community. So thank you so much to everybody listening, whoever you are. And again, to the BanklessDeSci squad for inviting me to give this honored talk. And that's it. Thank you guys.